I've spent a few minutes reading this stuff once, so I'll give you guys the benefit of what we figured out. And I'll try to move through this really quick, and just tell me if I'm going too fast, or tell me if you've had enough and you want him to come up and speak again. Just let me know.
Oh yeah, that's definitely.
Once upon a time, there was a area known as Turtle Island, sick. That's what certain people refer to it as. And there was people on the land over here. And this lady or some of her agents came over and met with these people. And they said, look at all these resources you guys have. This is awesome. Can we set up shop and do some business? And these guys went, sure. Because they had no idea what that meant, really. And plus, they didn't really understand the language that much. So there was an agreement put in place. Most of you in the logging industry will know that there's usually a 60-40 agreement. Somebody comes in, logs your bush, right? It's the guy doing the work, and usually the people owning the property get it a cut like that. So what they agreed to do is set up a little store. And I'm not sure if I'm infringing on a copyright here, but we'll just call it a Walmart. So the 60% goes to her organization. She had a corporation that does business. Known as Her Majesty. And Her Majesty had a bank where she borrows money from, known as the Crown. So any money that this little shop made, 60% of it went to Her Majesty, went to Her Majesty's bank, known as the Crown. And they did her books for her. The 40% went to these people, but these people didn't really know what to do with it anyway. They didn't need it. So Her Majesty organized a trustee.
Escrow?
And then these people ended up also banking for these people. How convenient. And this corporation did all right, and then they said sooner or later they started up a second and a third and a fourth corporation inside the territory. Now, this agreement was in place. These people, or the corporations, exported lots of products and cut down as many trees and killed as many animals as they could, shipped it all over wherever they wanted to, and 60% went to her bank account, 40% went to here, to this bank account. And the people in here work in the store. They all wore the blue uniform of Her Majesty, or I guess the red, we'll call it red, sure. And they were all bound by the laws of this corporation. Okay? These people were her subjects. They weren't Canadians, they weren't Americans, they were British people. Then around that time, these people started traveling the world and they realized that they could issue passports, and they did. So I'm leaving this very general and very quick, right? But so these people were able to issue passports because they had land, language, and culture, and they were their own nation. These people were subjects of her. Then after a while, these guys got into a little bit of financial trouble, and they merged Upper Canada was still solvent, Lower Canada. Well, if the one was still solvent, that means the other one wasn't. So they merged these two, and they formed the province of Canada, and then the Crown renewed the loans to these corporations. And then after a while, they got into more trouble, and then they formed the Dominion of Canada. And then the Crown again renewed her loans to keep this corporation afloat. And of course, 40% every time something leaves here, 40% is going into the trust fund. These people here are still all wearing the Walmart uniform, being owned, the corporation being owned by Her Majesty, sitting on the land, having the right to do business here, and that's it. And these people are still cashing in still accruing their 40% into a trust fund. So then they started again building a railroad across, and that bankrupted this corporation again. And funny thing happened that this corporation's revenue fund got merged with the Indian Trust Fund. And all of a sudden, these guys became a country and could issue passports. But if you want to be a country and issue passports, you need land, language, and culture. Does everybody see what happened? This thing was under a distress sale. The only money was sitting in this trust fund. The trustee of this trust fund said, hey, it's Walmart's 10 cents on the dollar, let's buy some stock. Now all of a sudden, all the people inside here are part of the corporation of Canada. They can issue passports and securities and all that other fun stuff, right? However, this still applies, right? So now the people that are born in here, and I'm going to speak in regards to Ontario because I know those documents a little better, although we have the British Columbia ones here. You'll see them, if somebody, well, you guys will know what they look like more than I will. If some little baby is born in here, that baby, well, because of the marriage contract, the baby is now the property of Her Majesty. This baby gets registered with the Vital Statistics Branch, the Register General, the Deputy Register, signs this document off and it says, I'm satisfied to the, somebody help me out, accuracy and completeness. Anyway, you look up the words on this, where the Register General signs off on this. When you look in that law dictionary, maybe somebody can do this as an exercise later, take a look at what a deed is. A deed must describe the property in full detail and be accurate and complete. This is the deed to this. There's also a law, the trust law, that says where an instrument is executed after July 1st, 1867, the holder thereof is deemed to be the trustee without conveyance of rights or title. Okay, in a nutshell. Something gets signed, the holder thereof is deemed to be the trustee. An instrument in writing that conveys an interest in land from the grantor to the grantee. It's usually used to transfer realty. Its main function is to pass title. And deed of trust, a legal transfer from the trustor to the trustee. Anyway, we'll just skip that for now. It's like, it goes on. So what happened is, this instrument was executed. The holder thereof is whom? How many people have a statement of live birth? How many people have an original? How many people have a certified copy? Ah, where's the original?
That's what I want to know.
Birth certificate, statements of live birth are done under letters patent registration system under common law England under existing royal ancient charter. Common law existing royal ancient charter. She's got the original, she's holding the title to this. For everyone in here. Well, almost everyone. There's a few exceptions in the room. Okay, so she's holding the title to this. How many people have heard her referred to as the Queen Mum?
Yep.
How old is this?
1867?
Usually you'll see that this is registered 2 to 3 days after the baby was born.
Right.
In 100 years from now, how old's the baby? It's still 3 days. It never ages. This document always says it's 3 days old. The Queen Mum is still responsible for all of these babies. Okay? This indicates your share of the Commonwealth of Canada. How many people know Canada's a Commonwealth country? Right? Well, your share of the Commonwealth, if there's 32 million people inside this colony, your share of the Commonwealth is denoted by 1/32 millionth of that value, and that's your share of the Commonwealth held in a foreign jurisdiction. And we need attorneys to go between jurisdictions. That's why the attorneys handle everything for this, because this is over here and this is a different jurisdiction. And that's why we always need attorneys to go back and forth in between the two. Okay, so now the baby is 2 years old. Statement of live birth is over here. Well, let's go back to 2 days old. The statement of live birth is over here. Her Majesty has a really, really hard time looking after all these babies. So what they'll do is they'll go out and hire the person known as mom and the person known as dad, because these guys all have EIN numbers. They're already working for this corporation. They've already got the Walmart uniform. Well, see, I should pick it. They've already got the Canada uniform on. They're already bound by the rules of this corporation. They're already working for this. They get now baby bonus, tax credits, for looking after the Queen's baby. So now the Queen is looking after this baby by her agent, the parents, and if you do something that the Queen or the Crown, the trustee, doesn't like, what do they do with the children? Take them away. Right. So now this baby grows up, starts wearing a dress, and is now 18. And now, as soon as that baby turns 18, the mom does not get baby bonus anymore because now this baby is old enough to contract and is responsible for its own affairs. Right now, this baby is still deemed to be Her Majesty's ally. It's deemed to be the property of Her Majesty. Okay? When you take a look at this statement of live birth, the wording at the bottom, in Ontario especially, it says, I'm satisfied to the accurateness and completeness and sufficiency of this statement. And what that means is it's to transfer the deed over there, and the sufficiency of it is the absolving of the parents for selling their children into slavery. The Register General has the ability to do that, forgive the parents for selling their children into slavery. So now the Queen Mum is responsible for this, which represents the deed to this. But this is always 2 days old. However, now this has the ability to contract for this. So now this thing is 18 years old and says, well, usually it happens around 14, 15, 16, they try to get a job. So now they want to go back to Canada and say, I want a job. And what does Canada tell them? Where's your social insurance number? We want to know if you're allowed to work for us. I don't have one of those. How do I get one? What do you need to get a social insurance number? Birth certificate. Okay. You want to come into our corporation, a foreign jurisdiction, and work. You're going to have to come in with a surety bond if you want to work for us, so that if you damage anybody inside our corporation, that we're indemnified. So you go out and get the surety bond, then you go back to Canada and you say, look, I got a surety bond. So this thing will have, oops, in Ontario, last first. This thing will have actually it'll have nothing like that. This will have first name, last name, and it'll describe it all. This thing says name. It doesn't say first name, last name. It says name. That tells you that this is, excuse me, very different than this. And this thing also says name, but it says, so you can tell that these are three different entities. How many people, when they get the birth certificates, it has like who they ship it to and then the birth certificate's underneath? And a lot of times you'll see that one name. So we're going to ship the last first birth certificate to first last. But they know it's the same, you think the same person, but they even describe it differently. But they always ship it to I don't know, 3Z4. They will ship it to an address, a postal code. Now that you have a surety bond, you are now manning the post with a postal address. There's a postal address associated with this birth certificate, who is the trustee of this document. You are now manning the post for the Queen, and they're going to ship the surety bond over to your post so that you can function the post and act as a very good trustee to look after this birth certificate. And you have a residence. How many people have ever been stopped by an officer for speeding? One? Oh. Did they ask you, how many people have been asked where they reside?
Right here.
You don't reside anywhere. So what happened is that you used to be over here on this side. Then you turned 18 and you said, I know what I'll do. I'll go and run my own affairs and I'm going to man a military post. And if you're going to man a military post, you reside inside Canada, which is an enemy of Her Majesty. This, remember, is... Am I just getting this all messed up? This is over here under common law England. And the Queen has the responsibility to look after this. Mom quit when you were 18. You man this post now. And every time we write a bill of exchange, a check, get a mortgage, anything else, we sign because we're manning the post, we have the authorite, because we're the ones who ask. We authorize them to extract from here and bring an extract over to the military post, and now we're walking around with a surety bond. And when we sign, where does the credit come from? It comes from your share of the Commonwealth. So what's happening is every time the authorized agent in the residence signs, the credit comes from here, well, through Canada. And if you take a look at the Interpretations Act, Canada is defined as a territorial sea and the navigable waterways. And if you want to know more than the Interpretations Act, go see the Oceans Act. So the Interpretations Act says Canada is the navigable waterways and the territorial sea. Go see the Oceans Act for more detail. The Oceans Act says Canada is a 12-mile strip around the land, and the territory or the navigable waterways, wherever, right? And it also, the Oceans Act tells people how to write speeding tickets for vessels that are derelict. So now you're standing over here in the colony. The credit is over here. Okay, so the Interpretations Act defines Canada as the navigable waterways and the territorial sea. And it says Canada for greater certainty, and it even defines it very clearly. And it says the provinces of Canada are the Yukon, Northwest Territories, Nunavut. And they have a whole lot of snow up here. And I wonder if the territorial sea would be considered everything that's the snow. Underwater, under Admiralty. So now your military post is over here. And the Queen is trying to get, well, anyway, so whatever happens, you sign, the money comes from here into here, and you go through Canada to do it. And this is why there's a tax on everything. This is what, anyway, that's your part. So what happens is that we have asked for an issue. The Queen says, I'll take care of everybody. The Queen is a defender of the faith. And God said to everyone, well, okay, I'm going to throw in religion in here. But anyway, there's a whole lot of people that believe that God looks after everything, whoever that God might be to you. And the Queen is a defender of all faiths, no particular religion. And what happened is that we say, no, we don't trust the Queen and we don't trust God, and we're going to go and do it ourselves. So now we have resided. We're against the Queen. And what happens is the military protects the Treasury. And we're on the other side. The military is protecting this side, and we're on this side. We're against the military, and this is why we're an enemy of the state. And this is why I believe when you take this and send it back in here, the military is now there to protect you. And this is why, figuratively speaking, you got the treasurer on one side and the bank on the other. So this is, and this is credit, right? The military is there to protect the private side, the credit. The police are there to protect the corporations, and the bars that go between to make sure that everything functions. It doesn't matter where you go, if you have a problem with anybody, post office, licensing, they get jammed up. Who's the first one they call is a lawyer, because it's the Crown that runs everything as trustee for this whole corporation for the benefit of these 4 provinces were formed into the Dominion of Canada. The Dominion of Canada created 4 more provinces. Can a fictional government create a territory? No. This land has never been ceded to the Crown that you're standing on. This still belongs to these people, held in trust.
Yeah, I know that.
By these guys, for these guys. There's a bunch of them in this room. If you guys want to say hi.
Do we owe them money?
Well, somebody does. You guys, go ahead. You guys want
I had a
to?
quick question here,
Sure.
Burke. Also, with regards to individuals now that sort of awakened some of this, they're not registering their children. So how does that then, the child is sort of born outside of that corporate entity, a lot of this doesn't actually apply to them then? There's just like, they're just a free individual on the land.
If you don't have a bank card, how are you going to do banking?
Well, people are still doing that. There's individuals that have not been registered since birth, and so that when they go into court, it's been seen like they can't see them. They're invisible inside there because they don't
If you don't have a bank card, how are you going to do banking?
create your own bank.
And that's exactly the key. You have to register your child. You can either let Vital Statistics do it, or in Ontario, you can either let Vital Statistics do it, or you can go down to the land registry and do it yourself. And it depends on who's giving up the deed. Are you giving it, or are you giving public notice of it? Are you giving away the deed, or are you giving public notice?
There is no deed. No registration, no deed.
Well, you asked me a question, and the answer was, if you want a bank, go put notice in that there's a vessel here. Don't give the vessel to the Queen, just put notice that there is a vessel. Now you got a bank. Now you can draw funds, because that vessel is registered, not to the Queen, but by the Queen. It's registered to you, having possession of that vessel, and the Queen has been given notice of it. And that's under the Registry Act in Ontario, I don't know.